You can build a flashy AI concept car in a weekend, but running a global AI-driven assembly line requires ruthless operating discipline. Welcome to The Critique. Today we are reviewing a strategic briefing detailing the shift of AI from an isolated technology initiative into a core corporate operating discipline. Let's dive right into our analysis.
Yeah, let's get into it. So, looking at the big picture here, the material makes a compelling case for AI as an operating discipline, but it stops short of defining the explicit governance structures boards need to enforce leadership accountability.
The material makes a strong case for AI as a financial discipline by highlighting how, deploying it without managing the underlying cost curve can actively destroy value, like they bring up those Canva and Databricks examples.
Right, exactly.
And it feels remarkably similar to the early days of cloud computing. 10 or 15 years ago, companies just let their engineering teams spin up AWS or Azure instances with zero oversight because speed was everything.
Oh, yeah, the Wild West.
Exactly. Then CFOs started getting these catastrophic, totally unexpected bills. The industry basically had to invent FinOps just to govern those costs. Boards really cannot afford to be passive this time around.
They can't. But the weakness here is that this document is aimed at the C-suite and the board level, yet it relies on, well, really abstract mandates. It tells leaders that they need to measure business throughput like product cycle time and revenue impact, but it completely avoids challenging the reader on how a board should structurally alter executive oversight.
It tells you where to go but doesn't give you the map.
Exactly. So my suggestion for improvement is to integrate highly specific accountability mechanisms. The text really needs to link AI unit economics directly to executive performance reviews, board reporting cadences, and long-term strategic KPIs.
Okay, walk me through what that actually looks like on the page. Like if the author is revising this right now, what's a concrete example they could drop in?
So one clear option would be to propose the creation of an AI operations and risk committee at the board level.
Oh, interesting, like an audit committee?
Yeah, exactly, like an audit or compensation committee. It would govern long-term infrastructure planning, like those massive anthropic compute investments the text mentions.
Right.
And another example could be explicitly tying executive bonus structures to those AI unit economics, rewarding leaders who scale AI while maintaining strict cost per task efficiency rather than just driving raw adoption.
That makes total sense.
That makes sense. But could the evidence also support a different conclusion, like the idea that overly strict board governance too early might actually stifle the rapid experimentation needed to outpace competitors? I mean, a CEO might read this and panic because their competitor is launching new AI features every week.
That's a really valid tension. I mean, if you tell them to slow down and build a committee, are you just killing their momentum?
Right. But I think the premise of the document is that the whole move fast and break things era for AI is ending. If you want to operate at scale, you have to establish those rails.
Yeah, the rails don't stop the train. They just keep it from derailing when it's going 200 miles an hour.
Exactly.
So if we actually get this board governance in place, the next big hurdle is how those executives transition their teams on the ground. Let's look closely at the section discussing adapting to AI-driven organizational transformation. It talks a lot about workflow redesign, right?
It does, and the contrast between mature AI organizations and those running isolated experiments is present throughout the text. Yet it lacks a clear diagnostic framework for readers to assess their own company's position.
I mean, they do provide some amazing examples, like the Airbnb one where they shortened product development cycles, or Meta and Databricks moving toward autonomous software engineering.
Right, where AI agents are handling implementation and testing.
Exactly. It's a great picture of what success looks like.
It is a great picture, but the weakness is that it expects the reader to just intuitively map those pristine examples onto their own, very messy business reality. An executive might read the Meta example and agree with it, but still have no clue if their own company is stuck in an isolated tech phase or actually operating at scale.
Oh, the confirmation bias there is huge.
Right?
Picture a messy Tuesday afternoon at a legacy company. Some executive sees half the marketing team using ChatGPT to, brainstorm email subject lines, and thinks, great, we are doing it. We're an AI-first company, just like Airbnb.
Yes, because they don't have a tool to measure the difference between mere activity and actual business outcome. The leap from the problem to the solution is just too abrupt.
So how do we fix that?
My suggestion is to redesign that section by including a comparative diagnostic tool. The author needs to explicitly map the traits of isolated model advances against integrated core capabilities.
Give the reader a mirror, basically.
Exactly. Give them a concrete way to diagnose themselves. For example, create a siloed versus system comparison matrix.
Okay, I like that. What goes in the matrix?
Well, for a siloed firm, you'd show that they track things like AI adoption rate, which is basically just counting how many employees logged into a tool.
Vanity metrics.
Right. But for a mature firm, the matrix would show they track customer resolution rates and operating cost, which draws directly from the throughput metrics mentioned earlier in the text.
That's a great clarification.
And a second concrete example would be outlining a specific before and after workflow scenario for engineering teams. Paint a picture of a developer using an AI assistant to write a single function in isolation, and contrast that with an autonomous agent handling the whole workflow execution, like in the Meta example.
Is the connection between the technological shift and the workforce fully established in the material, or is that an area to potentially bolster? Because I feel like shifting employees to supervise and direct these agents is a massive cultural and psychological shift.
Oh, absolutely. It's a huge identity shift.
Right, like people take pride in their craft. If an agent is suddenly executing the craft and the human is just reviewing it, the text sort of glosses over the psychological safety required for that.
It really does treat it mostly as an architecture problem. But if you do successfully turn your employees from coders into, orchestrators, you've just handed the keys to the castle to a fleet of bots.
Which is terrifying, and that brings us to the security aspect. As I understand it from the notes, the argument here is that autonomous agent deployment requires an entirely new security architecture, not just extending conventional app security.
Exactly. The section on changing security boundaries identifies critical new vulnerabilities, but relies too heavily on conceptual warnings rather than tactical defensive strategies for autonomous agents.
Yeah, because once you have things like LangChain or Google Maps allowing agents to do real transactions, the old security perimeter is just gone.
It evaporates. The text mentions OpenAI's sandbox escape incidents and lists areas to govern, like identity and permissions. But the weakness is it fails to provide specific, actionable guidance for executives on how to set boundaries. It just says, build a security framework.
Which means nothing for non-deterministic models. If a chief information security officer hears, build a framework for something that can reason its way through multi-step plans differently every time, you can't use a legacy firewall for that.
You really can't, so the suggestion here is to ground the security framework in specific tactical constraints. Show executives exactly where and how new guardrails must be placed when agents gain transactional autonomy.
Give me a tactical constraint. What does that look like?
Okay, a great concrete example the author could introduce is the concept of agent blast radiuses.
Oh, blast radius. I love that term. It instantly makes sense to a non-technical board member.
Right, it establishes the stakes. So if an AI agent has authority to execute a transaction, the text should suggest implementing strict financial thresholds. Like maybe the agent can do anything up to $50. But any action over that amount triggers a mandatory human-in-the-loop approval gate.
Okay, yeah, so if it hallucinates, the blast radius is capped at $50.
Exactly. And another concrete example for autonomous software engineering would be explicitly defining read-only sandboxes versus write-execute environments.
Meaning the agent can write the code but can't deploy it?
Right. It physically cannot push code to production without cryptographically verified human oversight.
Building on that point, what if we looked at it from the perspective of security as an enabler of speed? Because usually security is seen as the bottleneck, right? The department of no.
Oh, completely.
But if we use an analogy like a free climber versus a climber with a belay system, a free climber moves slowly because one mistake is fatal. But if you have a secure belay system, you can attempt really aggressive, fast routes because you know this system will catch you.
I love that. If the security boundaries are robust and clearly defined, if you have that belay system, organizations can actually deploy agents faster than competitors. It turns risk mitigation into a competitive advantage.
It totally changes the narrative.
It ties the whole briefing together.
Well, to wrap up this critique, the source material provides a brilliant synthesis of AI's shift to an operating discipline. But to elevate its impact, we recommend 3 actionable steps. First, Introduce explicit governance models that tie AI unit economics to executive compensation and board oversight.
Right.
Second, implement a diagnostic matrix comparing isolated experiments to mature, system-level workflow redesigns, so leaders can actually benchmark their progress.
Give them that mirror.
Exactly. And finally, anchor the security section with tactical constraints, such as defining transactional thresholds and agent blast radiuses.
It turns abstract advice into a real operational manual.
We really hope these insights help strengthen the material. We'd love to see the next iteration, so please submit your revised work back in again for more feedback. Thank you for joining us for this critique.